welcome to Meet the Candidates. The Frankfort Plant Board has been gracious enough to give us studio time where we can have the candidates come in and sit down and talk with them, get to know them a little bit better as people and as candidates. On this edition, we're going to be talking with John Sower. A great many of you already know John, but we're going to get a chance to explore his thoughts on the issues facing the Frankfort City Commission. John, it's good to see you again.
Good to see you, Janet.
As I was explaining to you, one of the reasons I think there may be a few people out there that don't know you is we have an influx of people periodically that come in with little or no experience with what's happening in Frankfort. So if you would tell our viewers, who is John Sower? What's your function in the community? And why are you willing to absorb the responsibilities of this yet again?
Well, I've been there before, but I guess to start in the beginning, my father was Frank Sower, who was a well-known businessman and philanthropist in Frankfort. My mother, Minnie Lynn Evans Sower, was pretty active too. She was a 50-year member of the Frankfort Garden Club, the Frankfort Women's Club, the DAR, and First Baptist Church. So it comes from a family of service, and that's where I come from. I graduated from Good Shepherd School, went to Kentucky State University, and also I graduated from Western Kentucky University with a major, double major you might say, in business, marketing, and management. While I was at school, I met the love of my life, Phyllis Mattingly. We were summer interns at state government in the Commerce Department, which was a block and a half from my home, so that made it very convenient. We met in '69 and were married in '70, have 3 boys, and Johnny, Tom, and Will, and they are all 3 successful. And I came home after graduating from Western to run Sower office equipment that my father had started, and did that, ran for the city commission back in '79 and won that, '78 and won that, and then served a 4-year term as mayor. Then we took a sabbatical as the children grew up. And I came back, ran for city commission 2 years ago, won that, and ran an unsuccessful race for mayor. And then I've been retired for the last couple of years.
And yet you're willing to assume the responsibility that comes with all this, knowing full well what it encompasses.
Well, it goes back to community service. It really does. I've been leadership positions in a lot of different organizations. While I've been retired, you might say, I've grown in service to the Soup Kitchen, to the Salvation Army, St. Vincent de Paul Society, which is affiliated with Good Shepherd Church. And those things have kept me busy, plus seeing my granddaughters. I forgot to mention them. I have 2 granddaughters, 7 and 9, and they're wonderful.
Which leads me to, what do you see as being the major issues that you're going to be facing now and in this coming term?
Well, that's easy, I think. The big elephant in the room is the development of the plaza area. My father was there when they put together the Capitol Plaza project, he and Farnham Dudgeon, Al Dix, and others. But that's the number one issue. Now, do you want me to go into further of that number one, or?
Yes, I would like to know, for example.
Sure.
What do you think should go there? How should we go about developing it, and what should we be looking at as the development to go into there?
That's the most important thing to hit Frankfort since the original Capitol Plaza development area. And I believe Paul Sullivan a former president of Farmers Bank, told me when I was mayor, said, Johnny, what we need more of in Frankfort is more people living downtown. So number one for me on the development of the plaza is mixed housing. We've got to have, to me it's real simple and logical from a business point of view. We've got 1,500 people that are going to be there in a new state office building. We've got 1,200 people in an adjoining transportation building. We've got 1,100 people at Home Street in the old state office building. And you've got that many people there, 3,800 state workers. How do we get them to come and live in Frankfort instead of coming from Shelbyville and Versailles and Owenton and so forth? You build housing that would be attractive to young, professional, career state employees. And that's what we would do. With mixed use, we'd have to have some commercial to provide for those 3,800 state employees that are already down there. We might have a drugstore, we might have a ice cream parlor, a small 7-Eleven. We ought to have a Tesla, a charger station down there if we want to look to the future, because we've got a lot of automobiles in one concentrated place, but the luxury of having workers that can walk to work.
That would negate the need for the vehicles?
Well, they're going to have a vehicle in the garage. We already are going to have the parking space in all those state buildings. Another thing about the development, of course, I spoke out at the city commission meetings and also wrote a letter to the editor, as well as formed a group that said, we need to bring back a civic center, convention center, whatever you want to call it. One of the problems we had with the old convention center, we didn't have enough breakout rooms in that facility. We've got to have that. We've got to have a kitchen. They didn't even have a kitchen in the old civic center. But it's embarrassing to me as a native of Frankfort to have our high school graduations no longer there. We had Frankfort High, Western Hills, we had Franklin County, we had Scott County come over to Frankfort, we had Shelby County come over to Frankfort and use our facility. What did that do? That was part of, Janet, the $20 million that Civic Center brought to this community by the state's own records. So that's why I think that should be a part of the mix.
So should it go in that same area?
We've got 8 acres and more, depending on what happens with the YMCA. And also, I would expand it a little bit further. I would like the state to give us where we have farmers markets so that the city owns that as well. I want to keep a place for farmers market, but I wanted to expand that to the riverfront, which adjoins the plaza area.
We have been hearing a great deal just recently about this nearly $8 million Tiger
Yes.
grant. What are your thoughts on developing that 2nd Street corridor, and how can we incorporate it to help the rest of us?
I have to give credit to the city manager for the wonderful job. She was very knowledgeable about the consulting company that helped us in D.C. to get the grant, and also Andy Barr, of course, and McConnell were a part of it. It doesn't hurt to have Ms. Chow be the Secretary of Transportation, and that's what it's all about. But we need the infrastructure that grant is going to take care of. It's going to solve the problem of Bridge Street and 2nd Street intersection. Also, the intersection across the river at East Main and Capitol Avenue. So with that kind of development and infrastructure growth and planting of the trees and taking care of the sidewalks and the bike paths, we are then going to spill over and provide more infrastructure for the development in business and commercial along 2nd Street. And we need that in Frankfort.
Do you see a way to use that as an impetus to develop further areas of downtown Frankfort?
Absolutely. This is going to be so good for Frankfort, both the Tiger Grant and the Plaza development, because of why? We want to put people to work. As a businessman, I'm all for jobs. Jobs can cure a lot of our ills. And we have the talent. That's one of the reasons, too, Janet, that I was been so involved with the neighborhood development grants that just recently were appropriated. I helped increase the number of dollars put into that from $50,000 to $75,000 when I was there as a city commissioner. The commission that followed me looked at that idea, thought it was a good idea, and expanded it, tenfold almost. And that type of grant, as well as these construction grants, put the trade people at work. The painters, the carpenters, the plumbers, all kinds of construction people. That's good for the local community of Frankfort because the city of Frankfort has tax revenue off of that, don't we?
Which brings us to budget.
Yes.
Now, we're in good shape, but there's always problems with maintaining a budget and trying to address certain areas that may be under attack. One of the things that's been in the news most lately is this pension crisis, and I know that it's going to have a heavy impact on our budget. Have you had a chance to analyze that and see what kind of an effect it'll have and what we might need to do to compensate for that?
It's going to be $2.3 million impact for the city of Frankfort. Luckily, we have the best finance director since Jimmy Rogers. We have Steve Dawson. He's taken the rainy day fund and expanded that more than we've ever had before. That's a good thing. Another thing that the city can always use is their bonding capacity. Luckily, through good management from the finance department, we've been able to have a bond rating of AA-. That's the highest in the state, Janet. What that means for you and the taxpayer is we can do bonding for some of these large projects to mitigate the impact on the taxpayer. Also, while I was mayor and city commissioner, I made it a point for the department heads to look for grants, whether they be state or federal like the Tiger Grant, in order to bring those tax dollars back to Frankfort. That helps too.
There are several things that have come up lately that I wanted to check with you about. We're trying to talk with each of the candidates about it. The appointments, as you've filled both positions, so you know, the appointments to boards are made by the mayor.
Sure.
What is your stance at this point on whether the city commission should have a greater oversight on those appointments?
Well, I think it's real important that they do. And I agree. When I was city commissioner, after, I guess it was 2016, when we saw the plant board do some different things or unconventional things, like challenge the KIMI contract that the plant board had certified a couple of years ago. And I think whether it's the plant board or the Planning and Zoning Commission would come to mind as well. We ought to have a thorough vetting of the candidates, and we did that. The first one we did that while I was city commissioner was John Cubine. And what we did, I wanted a face-to-face meeting. I couldn't get the votes to do face-to-face, so we ended up doing emails to the prospective candidate that were shared with the entire commission as a response back. So that way we could ask questions of that person. Now they've expanded that a little bit, and now they have public questioning too of plant board nominees. And I would expand it, like I said, to planning and zoning, because that's such an important department as well. Much better than the 2-page, 3-page bio that you get from the mayor's office.
Do you feel that there should or should not be an emphasis placed on having county representation on the Frankfort Plant Board?
Well, I take a different point of view. The plant board was created in 1946, so we're talking 72 years ago. And until recently, in the last appointment, it has always been city appointees. That was understood. And now the plant board has expanded beyond the city boundaries. In fact, it's about 30% of the plant board customers are outside the city limits. So I would go along with one, but I think what has to be done is I think you have to change the KRS, 96.172, I believe it is. You really need to change the KRS to make it explicit that you can have a member on the plant board from the county.
What about industrial representation on the various boards? Do you think that would be in our best interest?
Well, I think it would be. Why? Because they use 54% of all the power generated by the plant board. So that's a no-brainer. And you're going to find at least one of those, to meet the other qualifications I'm talking about, at least one of those that would live within the city limits. So that wouldn't be a problem.
What are your thoughts on development of the areas that are not considered downtown? I know we're focused on that at the moment, but there are more areas to the city than just downtown. What do you think you might focus on with that?
You know, I'm glad you brought that up too. Neighborhood associations are real important, and we ought to key in on the needs of those neighborhood associations. That would be one thing that I would do. Another thing we have done a poor job of, I think, is advertising the street repaving issue at City Hall. I believe it's in May that the city advertises in a small space in the State Journal that if you have a problem with your street, come down to City Hall and we'll rank it and we'll look at it. All of those are ranked, but sometimes the people in public works could overlook somebody's neighborhood or somebody's street improvement. And that's a wonderful way for citizens to take in their own hands, come down to City Hall and meet with the Public Works Department and say, this is my problem with my street and so forth. But otherwise, I would go back to the neighborhood associations and have grants for neighborhood associations that are active to beautify and clean up their own neighborhoods.
So what are the issues that you think you might be focusing on? Those areas that we've not really explored in our conversation. Are there issues that you would like to get in there and tweak a little bit?
Yeah. Well, you know, one of the things I did at the end of my term as the last city commission was we were able to get one more narcotics officer on the payroll. That's important. I think we shouldn't stop there. I think we should do that every year. As a matter of fact, when I was mayor, arrests went up during my term of office, and crime subsequently went down. And so, you know, I'm for arresting the drug dealers. I am for assigning another narcotics officer every year to help combat and take those drug dealers off the streets, because the opioid problem is mushrooming. It's not getting any smaller.
I know that is a key issue for a lot of people in the community, but for the number of arrests that are made, they're not all considered drug dealers.
Yeah.
Is there a way to address that issue?
Well, that's where the narcotics officer comes into play, because he's inside the situation. And he can lead us through investigation, where the dealer is, where the narcotics are coming from. We've got to go there. One of the other things when I was mayor that we did, we had a cooperative arrangement with neighborhooding police surrounding or contingent county police forces and sheriff's department, wherein we would share our undercover agent with them and they would share theirs with us. Why? Because the local guy may be known. They may already know him, but they're not going to know some guy from Georgetown or somebody from Shelbyville that comes over here. And I think that's the cooperative arrangement that I would also encourage the police department to do.
What is your stance on the adequacy of treatment to eliminate the need for those?
Yeah, that's a real tough problem. Ed Council, as you know, is trying to form a consortium of all the different partners in this situation. And really, I don't have an answer for you on that, Janet, to be honest with you. I think Ed is trying to do a good job to find out where are the most effective treatment places and to get people that have that problem in treatment as soon as possible. Of course, we've got to work also with the judicial system in order for them to say, yes, let's do some treatment rather than incarceration.
What do you think the impact is on our budget with all of these issues? Are we really in a position to address all of these issues without making cuts somewhere?
I think we can. I think we can. As I've explained before, I'm an advocate of grants in order to lessen the impact on the local taxpayer. After all, those state and federal grants are our tax dollars going to them anyway. Why shouldn't we get some of those back? Again, our bonded situation is much better. When I came on the City Commission last time, one of the things I did, and we had a crisis then, and at that time we had $10.5 million in the rainy day fund. And the city manager was proposing successfully, I thought, the idea of a utility tax for stormwater abatement. I said, look, we've got this rainy day fund. The finance director can put together a program that we can all agree on and use that surplus that we have, just a part of it, on a protracted basis, a 10-year plan, and help cure that rainy day fund without a utility tax that was going to cost the city $200,000 every time we sent out the bills. That was easy for me.
If there are areas that we have not touched on, at least in a general form, now would be a chance to bring it to our attention.
Well, one thing that we talked a little bit about was the plant board situation. And to me, I look at it from a business point of view. Unfortunately, there have been a lot of loggerheads, 2-2 votes, of whether KYMEA is a good thing or a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. Their own consultants that the plant board has hired, one said it's going to save the plant board $8.2 million. The other one said it was going to be $6.3 million. That's a no-brainer for me. I'm all for KYMEA and what they're trying to do. And right now we need to say yes to the SEPA idea, which will save us another $500,000.
I'm so glad you found time to come in and sit down with us. It is good to get to know you as a person and your ideas about sitting on the City Commission again. Would you look into this camera, please, and tell our viewers why you are the best candidate and why they should cast their vote for you on May 22nd?
My name is John Sower. My telephone number, I'll repeat twice, is 330-2964. 330-2964. I've answered more constituent services questions than any other member of the City Commission for the 6 years that I've been at your service. I want another 2 years. Why do I want that? I want to be of service to the city of Frankfort, and that's it. I'd like you to call me, and I'd like you to know that I've got the experience to do the job. You know what? I know the people at City Hall, and I know where the light switches are, and I know how to turn those light switches on. You want somebody with experience. You want somebody that has some integrity in the votes that they've taken, and you want to know where they stand on the issues. I'm not shy about telling you exactly where I stand on the issue. I appreciate your vote. The election is May 22nd. You can vote for 4 people on that election. It's an unusual election for City Commission. I'd like you to make me one of those 4 people that you vote for. Thank you, and thank the Plant Board for giving us an opportunity to share our views.
We've just been talking with John Sower. Stay alert for news about the Candidates Forum on April 26th, and be sure and join us for live election return coverage on May the 22nd. We'll come to you from the county clerk's office and bring you those numbers as soon as they're available. And to be sure that you cast your vote as an informed citizen, come back here to meet the candidates.